Humans arrive, aliens realize they aren't ready. Subscribe. Humans arrive, aliens realize they aren't ready. Part 1, The Listening Post. For centuries, the Zolari Empire believed itself prepared for anything. Their network of sensors spanned hundreds of systems, their war fleets unmatched, and their knowledge of emerging civilizations carefully curated through long-range observation. They had catalogued the rise of hundreds of species, most burned themselves out before reaching orbit. A few reached space. Fewer still mastered faster-than-light travel. But humans? Humans were a mystery. Status report, hissed Commander Theric, pacing the glossy floor of listening post 117 Gamma, deep within the Veil sector. His four-clawed feet clicked with each step, his eyes glowing with tension. Still no signal decay, said Technician Varric, tail twitching. They've cleared the Kuiper-level boundary and bypassed protocol beacon lines 1 through 3. No hesitation. Humph, Theric growled. No diplomatic packets. No query pings. None. They didn't even pause to analyze the comms net. It's like they don't care who's listening. The room fell silent. In the holographic center, a small icon blinked, a single ship, angular and dark, streaking across mapped space toward the galactic core. It bore no IFF. No standard drive signature. And yet, it traveled 3 times faster than any known Zolari vessel. Varric licked his fangs nervously. They've never answered any transmissions. No ambassadors. No greetings. Just motion. Primitive then, Theric muttered. Curious. Bold. But reckless. We will intercept. Send notice to High Strategos. He was cut off by the klaxon. The ship had vanished. What? He snapped. Where did it go? Unknown. Varric's hands scrambled across glowing interface tiles. One moment it was here, now it's, wait, oh no. A new icon appeared. Inside their system. 200,000 kilometers above the station. It jumped through the observation veil, Varric whispered. Straight into our territory. Sir, it's right above us. Theric froze. They knew we were watching. Orbiting quietly above the Zolari post, the human vessel Verity adjusted its angle. The ship was sharp, not beautiful, but dangerous in the way a tiger was. Its matte black armor absorbed light, and along its underside, a dozen silent drones detached and began scanning the surface. On board, Lieutenant Commander Eva Morgan watched a wall of real-time feeds, satellite intercepts, station blueprints, alien communication records. Intel confirms this is an early warning site, she said into her comm, they've been tracking us since Saturn. Passive for now. Should we introduce ourselves, came the voice of Captain Reed over the comms, dry and amused. We're already inside their defense net, sir. Our arrival is the introduction. Reed chuckled. Then let's make it formal. Back on listening post 117 Gamma, a voice spoke through every speaker. Not a digital voice. Not machine synth. A human voice. Calm, clear, unaccented. To the occupants of the listening post. We see you. We're not here to harm you. But we need you to understand, your games are over. The stars are open now. We're coming through. Varric nearly fell from his seat. They speak our language? No. That's perfectly translated galactic standard, Theric muttered. With no delay. No syntax lag. No accent at all. Varric blinked. Is that even possible? No, said Theric grimly. No, it's not. The High Council of the Zolari met in emergency session hours later. 15 members of the Imperial Corps. Cloaked in shimmering robes, ringed in concentric circles of rank and influence, they hovered in the airless chamber beneath the Imperial spire. And you say they spoke to you? Hissed Grand Strategos Ervolf, her mandibles flexing. They understood us, Theric answered, bowing low before the council. Not through simple mimicry. Through mastery. Our codebooks. Our syntax. They were inside our systems before we saw them coming. Was it a threat? Asked another counselor. It didn't need to be, Theric replied. It was a fact. They let us see them. Ervoltha's tone dropped to a deadly whisper. And what does the post recommend? There was silence. Then Theric looked up, eyes steady. I recommend we prepare for war. But war was not what came. 2 weeks later, humanity arrived at Solaris Prime, a neutral trade world long considered a cultural and diplomatic crossroads. Thousands of species passed through its orbital ports every solar cycle. And then, for the first time in its long, peaceful history, a human stepped onto the promenade deck. Commander Eva Morgan, clad in dark utility armor, flanked by diplomatic bots and combat-ready escorts, walked calmly down the ramp of the Verity. She didn't smile. She didn't wave. But every eye turned to her. Even the Talari silk priests, who hadn't looked up from their prayers in a century, paused in reverence. Because something primal stirred in the air. Something different. Something that said, we belong here. Now move. A minor Zolari envoy, draped in silver and bristling with cybernetic pride, approached her. You arrive unannounced, the envoy hissed. Your systems have not submitted to registry. Your armaments have not been declared. Eva simply looked at him. Not with aggression. But with understanding. You thought you were ready, she said softly. You studied us from a distance. You mistook our chaos for weakness. Our slowness for apathy. She stepped closer. You were wrong. The envoy recoiled. You call yourself post-biology, Eva continued. You think evolution ends where yours did. But we evolved after we learned how to kill each other. After we poisoned our air. After we digitized war. She leaned in, voice low. You've never seen a species who earned peace by surviving hell. And then she walked away. The envoy didn't follow. Because in that moment, he, and the watching galaxy, began to understand the truth. Humans had arrived. And no one was ready. Part 2, The Council of Silence. The days following humanity's arrival at Solaris Prime were unlike anything the galaxy had seen in millennia. Rumors spread like fire through the neutral zones. Star merchants whispered of a ship that could disappear from sensors mid-jump. Priests of the Dranathi claimed they had seen light without source in the humans' eyes. And in the backroom halls of power, the old empires grew nervous. On the 5th cycle, the Galactic Cooperative Council, the GCC, summoned an emergency meeting. Only 10 such meetings had ever been called in recorded galactic history. This one would be remembered as the 11th. Ambassador Eva Morgan stood at the center of the chamber of many voices, surrounded by beings whose ancestors had ruled for 1,000 years before humans even built fire. The Zolari ambassador, now replaced by the more senior minister Tshal, opened with acidic courtesy. We welcome the species, humanity, to this council, she said, voice clipped. Though your methods of arrival lack grace. Eva met her gaze, unblinking. Grace wasn't the priority. A low murmuring followed. Several species, including the slow-speaking Mnrati, tapped their forelimbs nervously. They had witnessed human footage. They had seen the brutality of Earth's history, the rapid weaponization of orbital platforms, the civil wars that killed billions, followed by reconstruction. No species in the known galaxy had advanced so quickly, or so violently. Minister Tshal continued, your species presents a contradiction. Your file indicates both barbarism and resilience. Chaos and cohesion. War and, somehow, peace. Please clarify, which version of humanity stands before us? Eva paused. And then answered, voice calm but clear. All of them. Silence fell. One of the members, a crystalline being of the Aristotle conclave, hummed softly. Are you, unified? Eva shrugged. Enough to stand here. The council buzzed again. We don't represent perfection, she continued. We didn't emerge from noble bloodlines or controlled genetic drift. We were born of desperation. Everything we are is built from mistakes. But we learned. That's the difference. Your learning appears aggressive, hissed Shal. You think aggression is weakness, Eva replied. We learned that survival sometimes requires fire. The quorum of three insectoid species linked through hive thought, clicked in agreement. Fire creates renewal. Minister Shal's mandibles flexed in irritation. The humans weren't here to beg for entry. They were declaring presence. Meanwhile, in orbit above Solaris, the human ship Verity continued its silent vigil. Other vessels gave it wide berth, not out of protocol, but fear. Commander Reed watched from the bridge, arms folded. Status, he asked. Passive scans only, said Lieutenant Sang. Zolari scout cruisers are shadowing us. We're letting them. Good, Reed said. Let them listen. Let them worry. He stared at the starfield, familiar and foreign. They assumed we were alone, he said. They assumed wrong. On the council floor, Eva reached the crescendo of her speech. Humanity does not ask for permission, she said. We offer cooperation. But we won't wait for consensus to act. We've seen what happens when good people do nothing. The Dranathi monk beside her bowed in silence. Eva finished, we come not as conquerors. Not as children. We come as survivors. Minister Chal stared coldly. You speak of survival. But we maintain peace. Eva looked around at the gathered faces. Some smug, some uncertain, some fearful. Then you've never faced extinction. A beat. You're not ready for us, she said. But we're here anyway. She stepped back. And the chamber, for the first time in its history, was silent. No rebuttals. No questions. Only the echo of a truth they could no longer ignore. Humans were here. And the galaxy had no idea what that meant. That night, the Minister of Cultural Strategy for the Tsar Collective sent a private message to the Zolari High Council. The humans aren't bluffing. They don't posture, they prepare. Their threat isn't their weapons. It's their ability to suffer, endure, and grow stronger from it. The response came only one line long. Then we must begin contingency plans. Back on the Verity, Eva returned to the command deck, removing her diplomatic coat, her face drawn but composed. Reed handed her a mug of rehydrated coffee. You shook them. They'll recover. Should they? She took a sip, smiled tiredly. They'd better. Outside the viewport, 3 new human ships shimmered into existence, stealth models. Quiet, dark, and watching. Just like the humans always had. Part 3, Lessons in the Dark. 3 weeks after Eva Morgan's speech at the Galactic Cooperative Council, the Verity received a private transmission. Not from a formal state. Not from any political body. But from a station known only in the darker layers of the galactic web, Xerxes Drift, a black market trade hub beyond known borders. Officially unacknowledged, unofficially indispensable. Every major empire pretended it didn't exist, while quietly using it. They want a meeting? Asked Reed, pacing the dim command room. There's only 2 reasons a place like that calls us: they want to sell something they shouldn't, or they want to kill us. Eva watched the encrypted hologram loop again. A cloaked figure. No species identifier. But the voice was crisp and deliberate. Humanity has secrets worth selling. But we may also have secrets you're not ready to face. Come to Xerxes' Drift. Alone. If you dare. Reed leaned in. It's bait. Eva nodded. Of course. And we're going. Obviously. Xerxes' Drift was a scar in space. Not a proper station, but an asteroid hollowed out and fused with the remains of 20 different wrecks, Zolari haulers, Yadari freighters, even what looked like a broken human exploration module from the early days of Earth's lunar era. No welcoming party. No customs. Just the unblinking stares of scavengers, mercs, and exile tech lords. Eva descended alone. No guards. No drones. Just a sidearm and a translator node. A voice greeted her as she stepped into the main chamber of the drift. You came, said a tall, four-armed figure wrapped in iridescent cloth. His voice was perfectly modulated. Too perfect. You offered something interesting, Eva said. Knowledge, the figure replied. Of what you really are. They sat across from each other in a private negotiation vault. Soundproofed. Scrambled. Physically sealed. The figure laid out a small device, black, angular, humming with encryption signatures. 2 decades ago, he said, one of our probes intercepted a human research outpost on a class for toxic world. No life. No structures. Just signals. We expected a small base. Instead, we found an imprint. Eva raised an eyebrow. Imprint? Not machines. Not AI. Not code. Memory. Digital ghosts. He pushed the device toward her. Your people were dying. Hundreds of them. But instead of fleeing, they stayed. Kept transmitting. Kept learning, even as their bodies failed. He leaned in. You don't fear death like we do. You wear it. Eva didn't touch the device. Why are you showing me this? The figure's eyes glinted. Because I've worked for the Zolari. I've seen their contingency plans. And I know what's coming. Eva remained still. They think you're a threat because of your weapons. But your real threat is something they don't understand. Which is? He smiled, sharp and cold. Your insistence. When Eva returned to the Verity, she handed the device to Reed. Decrypt it. Quietly. What's on it? Pain, she said. But the kind we need to remember. Elsewhere, far beyond neutral space, the Zolari Fleet Command met in a classified session. The Grand Strategos and her High Admirals reviewed human fleet paths, language evolution patterns, resource usage, and, disturbingly, war game simulations. Every time we simulate a first strike engagement, the humans lose the opening salvo, said Admiral Vren. But they always win the war, murmured another. Ervolf stared at the data. Because they adapt. They don't care about casualties, Vren said. They don't even try to preserve their old. They send everyone into the fire. Scientists. Mechanics. Farmers. And they learn while burning. A junior strategist whispered, they treat peace like it's rented. And they're ready to pay the price when it ends. The room went silent. We thought they were a species, Ervolf said. They're an event. On Solaris Prime, the alien public's fascination with humans was growing. Human literature was being translated. Music was broadcast. Documentaries from Earth's brutal 21st century, wars, revolutions, climate collapse, and recovery, became bestsellers in the archive circles. The Dranathi monks taught Earth poetry to their young. One Zolari historian went so far as to publish a controversial paper titled, Humanity as Catalyst, Why Their Arrival Signals the End of Galactic Complacency. He was exiled 3 days later. But the paper went viral. And was translated into 48 dialects. In the observation tower of the Verity, Eva stood alone, watching distant stars twinkle. Reed joined her, sipping black coffee. The Tsar Collective just opened up diplomatic channels. Eva didn't smile. Fear is a good motivator. Yeah, but how long before someone tries to shoot first? Eva stared into the dark. They won't shoot because we're dangerous. Reed looked at her. They'll shoot, she continued, because we remind them what they could have been if they'd suffered a little more. Optimistic, he muttered. No, she said. Human. Part 4, The Test. One cycle later, the galaxy reached a breaking point. It started with a dead world, Velar 9. A mining colony wiped clean in a single hour. No survivors. No warning. No claim of responsibility. Just a cratered surface and melted machinery, all bathed in unknown radiation. At first, the GCC suspected humans. It made sense. Velar 9 sat close to a system where Verity had passed. And humans, after all, were still the wild card. But then came the message. A simple broadcast, in every known galactic language. You have grown slow. You have grown weak. You have forgotten the cost of survival. We have not. Prepare. The sender was unknown. The origin, deep interstellar dark space, far beyond any trade route or colony beacon. And the response from the galaxy? Panic. In the war chamber of the Zolari High Command, Minister Tshal glared at the star map. Who are they? She hissed. These aggressors? Are they human offshoots? No, growled Strategos Ervolf. They don't match any Earth tech. No human signal traits. No psychological pattern overlaps. Then why now? Ervolfa's eyes narrowed. Because humanity arrived. And now, the predators wake. Tshal stared at the growing red zone on the map, 3 systems already falling to this unknown force. We need the humans. Ervolf nodded slowly. Yes. But we'll regret asking. The Verity received the encoded message at 2 o'clock Standard Time. Eva read the contents, then said only one word. Finally. The human diplomatic cruiser Archangel met the GCC fleet at the edge of the Rho Terra's expanse. 70 alien ships orbited in careful formation, each one shielded, weapons powered, nervously eyeing the angular black vessels humanity had brought. Captain Reed stood on the Archangel's forward platform, flanked by Eva and the rest of Earth's unified military council. We appreciate your invitation, Eva said over open comms. But let's not waste time pretending you called us here for tea. Minister Tshal's image appeared above the fleet. Our intel suggests an imminent threat to the central systems. We request collaboration. Request, Eva said. You mean beg. The silence that followed was brutal. But then Tshal, stiff, proud, unyielding, said something no Zolari had uttered in 1,000 years. Yes. The combined task force jumped toward the source of the signal, a dark, cold sector of space lit only by gravitational anomalies and shattered moons. The enemy was already there. No ships. Just, constructs. Massive, lattice-like warforms that reconfigured themselves mid-battle. No engines. No life signatures. Just motion. And death. When the GCC fleet fired, the constructs adapted. Laser. They refracted it. Missiles. Absorbed into nanocores. EMP. Reversed and redirected. The Zolari panicked. The Tsar's ships retreated. But the human fleet? It moved forward. Status? Reed called out from the Archangel's bridge. Analyzing now, said Sang. These constructs are code-reactive. They're adapting to intent. Like they read our playbook before we opened it, muttered Eva. Reed grinned. Then we stopped playing by the rules. He tapped the console. Release the crows. 53 stealth drones, invisible to all but Earth's own signals, launched from hidden ports across the fleet. Their names were etched in their cores, names of cities burned, soldiers lost, and promises broken. Their mission? Chaos. The drones didn't attack directly. They fed the enemy thousands of false inputs. Broadcasted contradictory firing patterns. Spammed primitive human emotion signals, rage, grief, joy, loss, like digital static. And then, amidst the confusion, Earth struck. A rail lance, prototype, never before tested, fired from the Verity's belly. It wasn't a beam. It wasn't a missile. It was a sound. A pulse of harmonized kinetic disruption, built from models of Earth's own seismic catastrophes. The force shattered the largest construct into fractured shards. Another followed. And another. Within minutes, the enemy began to fall. Not because the humans were stronger. But because the humans fought like nothing the galaxy had ever seen. The GCC fleet watched in stunned silence as the final construct went dark, drifting toward the dead moon it had tried to harvest. Shaw broke protocol and opened direct visual feed to Eva. You sacrificed dozens of drones. Yes. Why? Because they weren't people. But Eva cut her off. You think war is sacred. We think war is problem-solving. It's not about glory. It's about ending the fight fast, with your people still alive. Ervolf stepped into frame beside Shaw. Her voice was quiet. We were not ready. Eva nodded. No. She turned away, looking toward the stars. But now you are. Part 5, The Future They Didn't Expect. 2 months after the fall of the constructs, the galaxy was different. The GCC had changed. Not officially, bureaucracy moved slower than dying stars, but silently, undeniably. Where once humanity had been a footnote, an outlier, a problem, now they were at the center. Not feared. Respected. The Dranathi archives recorded the Battle of Ro Terras as the moment the flame returned. They described humanity not as warriors, but as the memory keepers of suffering. Species who had forgotten struggle now studied Earth's history with reverence and dread. On trade networks, human tech became black market gold. Even the Zolari, proud, cold, obsessed with order, began testing neural interfaces based on Earth's fluid chaos theory. But the most telling change? The words. In 1,000 languages, one phrase began to spread, whispered, repeated, printed in small, careful fonts. They survived themselves. What do we become, when they survive us? Eva Morgan stood in Earth's Hall of Accord, a towering chamber carved from lunar stone and armored glass. As the GCC's ambassador presented a formal, recorded declaration. Humanity of soul, earthborn and diaspora, you are hereby offered full status in the Galactic Cooperative Council, with all rights, protections, and responsibilities. She didn't smile. She didn't bow. She just answered, voice steady. We accept. Later, on the observation deck of the Verity, Reed watched a shuttle rise from the lunar surface. That it? He asked. Eva nodded. They'll send treaties. Trade packets. Probably think tanks. Reed smirked. Think they finally understand us? No, she said. But they understand what happens when they don't. They stood in silence for a moment. Ever think we'd make it here? He asked. Not like this, Eva admitted. But we always make it. That's what we do. He raised a brow. Even if we shouldn't. She turned toward him, eyes calm. Especially then. Across the galaxy, worlds once isolated reached out. Survivors of collapsed empires, fringe colonies abandoned by the GCC, species whose plights had gone unheard, they sent signals to Earth. Not asking for weapons. Not begging for rescue. Just hoping. That maybe, if humans had arrived, someone finally would listen. And humans did. Aegis-class humanitarian ships were launched, part dreadnought, part hospital, part archive. They didn't fly flags. They flew questions. They entered space that had been called cursed, unreachable, lost. They always found someone. And they always brought them back. In a hidden room beneath the Zolari capital, Minister Tshal met once more with Strategos Ervolf. We spent centuries preparing for unknowns, Ervolf said. We never imagined they'd be human. Tshal looked at the projection of Earth, still scarred, still turbulent. We studied strength, she murmured. We should have studied resilience. And now? Tshal exhaled slowly. Now we study them. On Earth, a child in Nairobi watched a broadcast from a distant moon where humans had just landed, planting a single beacon with the Earth emblem. The boy turned to his father. Why are they going there? His father smiled. Because no one else would. The boy frowned. Isn't it dangerous? Yes, the father said. But that's what makes it important. And so humanity kept moving forward. Not to conquer. Not to rule. But because motion was in their blood, survival baked into bone, learning carved from pain, and hope carried like armor. The galaxy had watched, and waited. Now they understood. They hadn't been ready. But they would be. Because the humans had arrived. And they were just getting started. The end.